And I say to all of you now, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our independence. Say that again? What? Today is not Independence Day. Today is not the 4th of July. Well, then why the hell am I giving this speech right now if it's a week later? That makes no sense. Oh, alright, cool. False alarm, everyone, false alarm. Just come back in a week when it's 4th of July, and then I'll continue this epic speech. Alright, peace out. President out. Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy, and I'm here today to review the film Independence Day Resurgence. Now, Independence Day Resurgence takes place 20 years after the events of the first film, and mankind has kind of unified together and put away all their petty differences in order to protect the world from any impending alien threat. And sure enough, the aliens from the first film are back for their vengeance, and this time they're gonna try to take the Earth's core so that they can refuel all their ships and move on to the next planet. And it's up to mankind to face off against them and defeat them once again for Independence Day. I, for one, found it to be strangely coincidental that they would just happen to pick the exact same day, 20 years later, 4th of July, to attack Earth once more. I mean, they really couldn't pick like another day, like New Year's Eve, Christmas, Easter Sunday, April 8th, my birthday. Hell, that would be one eventful birthday for myself. Now, personally, I wouldn't consider myself a huge fan of the first Independence Day, but I will say that I did enjoy that film for what it's worth. Yeah, sure, it does have a few problems of its own and it is terribly dated, but it's still a really fun, entertaining, mindless popcorn action film, and it was really solid for its time. But when I heard that they were making a sequel to this film 20 years after the original, I went, that film, Independence Day, is getting a sequel. Well, better add that one to the list of unnecessary sequels many years later. I mean, Jesus, how many films came out this year that are direct sequels to films that came out nearly 2 decades ago? I mean, Zoolander 2, Finding Dory, Independence Day Resurgence, and I'm sure there's plenty more that I completely forgot about. But I mean, seriously, is this becoming like a trend? Like we're trying to tap into that nostalgia realm with some of the movie-going audience? Hey, remember this film from nearly 2.5 decades ago? Yeah, didn't you remember how great that film was? Well, here's a sequel that you didn't ask for. But you know what? Even though these sequels were unwarranted and completely unnecessary, who knows? Maybe the original creators came up with some brand new ideas, some brand new stories to bring some life to these old franchises, or maybe they always had a story in mind but just didn't have the sufficient funds, the time, or even the technology to tell their stories, to bring them to life. And who knows, maybe even though it is a bit forced and comes out of nowhere, maybe they can give us something fresh, something new, something to really add to the mythos of the story that they originally told. I mean, the creative process is a difficult, complex, but a very satisfying, fulfilling, and interesting process. Or it could just be a major cash grab to milk off the nostalgia of people who saw the original film. It's more like the latter than the former most of the time, but you never know, some of the cases it is the former and not the latter. So what the hell, I'll give Independence Day Resurgence a chance. I mean, what do I really have to lose besides my own time? So now I'm gonna share my thoughts about this film with all of you. So first, let's talk about the good. The action scenes were pretty fun to watch. I mean, to be honest, it was just visual noise to me, like look at all these explosions, look at all these aliens, look at all these ships crashing into each other and blowing up. Isn't that really cool, guys? And at first it was like, yeah, it is pretty cool, but it kind of loses its luster as the movie goes on. But I will say, I found it rather entertaining. My favorite part about the film actually has nothing to do with any of the action, any of the characters, or truly any of the story, but I do like the idea of mankind not only coming together and unifying as one to face off against any alien threat that might come their way, but I also like the fact that they took the technology from the first film after it was all left there. They actually used it to their advantage. It's not like they just get all of this alien crap out of here, throw it into space, we don't really need it. No, they actually found a way to integrate it into their society and use it as their own weapons and use it against their foes if they ever decide to come back. And to give props to the story, it isn't a complete rehash of the first film story. Most sequels fall into that trap where they try to rehash the same story they told in the original. Here in Independence Day Resurgence, they do tell their own unique story with their film. And the acting for the most part isn't entirely hokey. Some of the actors did pretty well with their performances. No one was really excellent, but they were pretty decent. They did the best that they could with what they were given. And let me see, yeah, that's all the good that I took away from the film. The rest? Nope. The big problem with this film, much like its predecessor, hell, much like most Roland Emmerich films, is that the film is so event-centric, focusing so much on the spectacle of what's happening and not really much on the substance of what's happening, that the audience isn't really engaged or even attached to what is going on and who's being affected by what is going on, because they're so focused on showing you all of these big money shot scenes where there's a lot of explosions, a lot of fighting, a lot of dogfights going on, but you're really not inclined to care what is happening. There's no real attachment. Like, yeah, I saw an explosion and I'm sure that person died, but I don't care that that person died. I don't feel the weight nor the levity of these situations because they fail to focus on the most important thing when it comes to like any of these disaster films or even an alien invasion film, focusing on the characters and their situations, fleshing them out to the point where you're actually attached to what is going on with them and you want them to succeed. Yeah, sure, you do want humanity to succeed, but not because you really are engaged and attached to them, but because they're the heroes and you technically will always drift towards the hero's side of the story. That's just human nature right there. We want the hero to win. And that big, glaring issue is much like the mothership in this film. Once that's taken out, once that's dismantled, once that's destroyed, everything below it comes crumbling down to the ground, and that includes the story and the characters, the two quintessential elements in making a great and compelling film. I think we all know what I'm going to say when it comes to the story in this film, don't we? Give me a C, give me an L, give me an I, give me another C, give me an H, give me an E. And what does that spell? Cliche. Yeah, it's your standard generic alien invasion / disaster movie. Tons of people die, you don't really care, and we just have to prevent this catastrophe from either continuing or to put a stop to the aliens who are invading us. It's your pretty standard alien invasion film. I mean, we've seen this done a bajillion times before, and sometimes done extremely well. While it isn't anything bad, it's just nothing truly remarkable or even interesting to help it stand out from the crowd of films much like itself. And to add insult to injury, this film had absolutely no right to have such a generic, played out, and bland story with 5 writers attached to this film. You heard that right. 5 writers. And yet you guys couldn't come together to tell a compelling and interesting story? You all fail as writers. Also, way too many subplots in this film, most of which are just filler. Extra padding to lengthen the film's runtime, yet they add nothing to the film, nothing to the story. They don't even present us with some interesting, fascinating, likable, or relatable characters to be attached to. There's this one subplot dealing with a group of kids in a car that bump into one of the characters from the first film, and they go on this road trip to head to Area 51. What was the point of giving this subplot any focus whatsoever? What, because there was a character from the first film that was with them? That character served no point to the story whatsoever. They did nothing to add to the climax of the film besides being a nuisance for other characters, and that's not helpful. There's also a plethora of tacked on love stories that don't get fleshed out. You don't really feel a bond or connection between the characters. You don't buy the romance. There's also some tension between some characters. Sometimes you bought it, other times you're like, nah, I'm not really buying it. Like, there's this tension between the son of Will Smith's character from the first film and this like orphan guy played by Liam Hemsworth, and they have this conflict, and at first I was like, okay, that's interesting, but there's not much weight to it, and they kind of get over it quite easily after just one real argument, and like, oh no, I forgive you now, it's okay. And while on the subject, let's talk about the characters. They were either paper thin and bland, or extremely pointless and annoying. There's only two characters in the entire film that I actually gave a damn about. The first one was Jeff Goldblum, even though he didn't really have much to say. I mean, he did a lot, but I felt like they could have done more with this character. I still like Jeff Goldblum and the character that he played. The second one is this African warlord. I wish he was the main character. That guy is freaking cool, freaking badass. And like, he takes down aliens, like he knows how to take them down. He tells them, you have to attack them from the back. And this guy was just freaking awesome. And he has this really tragic backstory dealing with his father and his brother that I wish they could have focused more on that. He should have been the main character. He was cool. But no. Instead, the film wants us to follow these stoic, one-dimensional characters with simple blanket backstory and development that is so generic it made me want to snore. It made me want to fall asleep, as they're nothing interesting, they're nothing compelling. I could give two shits about any one of them, new character and old character alike. Or better yet, we can follow the really pointless, annoying, and useless side characters that are supposed to pass off as comic relief. But the problem is, they don't do anything funny, they don't say anything funny, they just come off as really annoying and forced. There's nothing worse than a forced comic relief character trying to ease the tension of a situation with his terrible sense of humor. No, not terrible sense of humor. Forgive me, I was mistaken. A complete lack of humor. That's what I meant to say. One of the new characters, as well as the guy who plays him in the film that just really let me down, was the guy who played the son of Will Smith's character from the first film. Much like the real son of Will Smith, the guy just lacks the likability, charm, and charisma that his father had. Like, this guy is so bland and stoic. He has one expression in the entire film: serious and stern. He's always talking like this, and I have problems with everybody, and my mom just died and I just can't take it. But we're gonna do it because it's Independence Day. Let's show them some fireworks. That's all I'm really like. I just do this one face. I don't really smile that much. I don't giggle. I don't cry. I don't laugh. I just go like this. This is all I do. You could have easily have said that he was some other guy's son, and I would have completely bought it. But if you tell me that he's the son of Will Smith's character, I would say no effing way. His dad was way cooler than that, and there's no way that his son is gonna be just like that. There's no way. But honestly, when you think about it, his son in real life is much like the character in this film, not as charismatic and not as likable as his father. So I guess in hindsight, it's kinda accurate. So overall, while I did find some of the action scenes in the film entertaining to a certain degree, and some of the story elements pretty interesting, overall the film is just a product of too little, too late. They were trying to bank off of the nostalgia of people who grew up with the film, but the sad thing is, I never grew up with the film, and I know many people don't really think fondly of this film, so it's a bit too late to really make people really care about this film. Not to mention that it's chock full of so many generic cliches that we've seen in other alien invasion films and done way better. It's just not really worth your time, and it's honestly quite forgettable, and that's why it's gonna get a 2 out of 5 stars. It's an easily forgettable film. But as always, I'm not the end-all be-all opinion when it comes to Independence Day Resurgence. I would love to know what you guys thought about this film. Did you love it to death? Do you think it's one of the best alien invasion action movies you've ever seen? Or did you find it really lackluster, dull, definitely a product of too little too late? And are you a fan of the original Independence Day film? Did you grow up with it? Were you a young adult when it came out? And let me know, what is a sequel to a film that you felt like was the product of too little too late? Comment below, let me know. I have a bunch more videos coming up. Thoughts on some films that I didn't get to review when they first came out. Some movie reviews I still need to catch up on. I didn't forget about the anime reviews. I probably will have one out this weekend, so stay tuned for that. And also, Matt and I are getting back to some of the LGBT reviews that we've been missing out. I know you all been waiting to see those. And I have a very special video at the end of the month. So stay tuned for that right there. Haha! Building up the anticipation. But until then, guys, if you'd like to see more videos on this channel and be a part of the Black Critic crew, please hit that subscribe button below. Like this video if you really enjoyed it. And I'm Tony Watt II, celebrating our Independence Day nearly a week before Independence Day weekend as the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.